So today I want to share a tip with you that my wife really came up with on her own a long time ago, but in reality, it wasn't until I was going through some things after she passed away. My wife passed away in October of 2021. And as you can imagine, it was a tumultuous time for our family. You know, she and I had worked hard to create a world where our kids could thrive. And she and I had created what we called a top 1% happy family, and we had a top 1% happy marriage. And I've had some people ask me, how can you quantify that you have a top 1% happy marriage? And it's pretty simple for me because I said we had a top 1% marriage, 1% happy marriage, and my wife said we had a top 1% happy marriage. And if she says it and I say it, then that's what it is. So that's how I quantify it. But as I was going through some papers after she passed away, it was still pretty early on, but I found myself going through some things, and I found a handwritten document, and it was a strategy that she had created to help her manage her thoughts. And at the time, after she passed away, obviously, I and my six kids, it was important, very, very, very important to us at that time to manage our thoughts because if you've ever been through a tragedy of this type, or even not anything this hard, as you face challenges, sometimes our minds can get the better of us, and we can go down these rabbit holes of discouragement or despair or bitterness, and we've all been there, right? And so, as I was going through these papers, I had heard her talk about the strategy, and she and I had actually worked on it together down the road. But I found her handwritten strategy, and I want to kind of share a little bit of that with you today. And so, here's the context of it. We believe in our family that everything starts with a thought, right? Thoughts create actions, actions create habits, habits create character. And so we had decided to try our best to manage our thoughts. And one of the things that she had struggled with was, thoughts of frustration or anger or discouragement as we go through challenges in life and as we face these things with our sometimes very, very challenging kids. And so she had made two columns. And on one side, she had made a good column, and one side she had made an evil column. And she had written down a bunch of thoughts, frustration, bitterness, anger, discouragement, disgust, and she had put them in the evil column. And she had decided that what she was going to do is she realized that thoughts are going to either take us towards goodness, and we think God, or away from goodness. And anything that goes away from goodness and in her mind and away from God is evil. And it created a very clear line, a black and white. Now, I know a lot of people believe there's a lot of gray in there. It's okay to be frustrated and angry and discouraged. Our issue is that we didn't want to stay there very long because we knew that could take us away from goodness and God. And what she did was across from each of these thoughts, bitterness, she decided to write in the column across from that under the good column. Bitterness was under the evil column. Across from that, under the good column, an alternate thought that she could focus on that would move her towards goodness and in our minds towards God. And across from bitterness, she wrote in gratitude. And it's interesting how many of those columns, and I'll give you a couple of them off the top of my head. I remember across from frustrated, she wrote fascinated. And across from angry, she wrote happy. And across, so she went down, and every time she'd have these thoughts, she would stop what she was doing and identify the thought and give it a name and write it in one column or the other. And those that fell under the evil column that would lead us away from goodness, she wrote it down. She decided on an alternate or an opposite in her minds in that column. And we ended up doing, and it was interesting because when I found this, it reminded me of how powerful this could be during that very difficult time for me and my kids. The passing of my wife was a tragedy. It could be life changing. And frankly, I read a lot of accounts about how the passing of a wonderful wife and a mother could destroy families. And I just wasn't going to have that. We had worked too long and too hard to create a family that was in love with each other and that loved each other and loved to be together. So I was really determined. And so when I found this, it was like a breath of fresh air. And it was like she was reaching out to me from the grave and saying, share this with the kids. And so me and the kids sat down and we talked about this. And frankly, I believe it was a key component to us continuing to being able to continue to thrive as a happy family, even though she was gone, because she wouldn't want us to fall apart. She wouldn't want us to be destroyed. She wouldn't want us to change anything. She would want us to continue to be happy. And so I just wanted to share that with you because I think it's a really powerful, simple little strategy. Your thoughts are either going to lead you towards good and God or away from God and towards evil. And again, we know there's a lot of a gray area there, but when you make it very clear, it's either going to lead you to good or away from good. It really makes you identify those thoughts. And if you can identify those thoughts in your mind, and they can take us down a rabbit hole of pain and suffering if we let it. If we can identify those thoughts early on and replace them with thoughts that are going to lead us toward goodness, it's going to make us happier. It's going to make us more productive. It's going to keep us in a state of happiness and joy, which is what I know Shelly would have wanted for us and our family even after our passing. So hopefully that's helpful, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye bye.